Hello everyone, I'm Darren Magee. Now, reactive abuse is a term that's often used to describe whenever someone reacts or responds to mistreatment or provocation, and it is then the reaction that is focused on, not what caused it. And in narcissistic relationships, it can be an ongoing pattern of behaviour aimed at making it difficult for people to assert themselves. Because sometimes, no matter what someone does or says, the abuse continues. And people can be provoked so much they get pushed to their breaking point, and they can no longer hold in their frustration. Some people may react emotionally, defensively, sometimes they might even react aggressively. Sometimes they're pushed so far that the reaction can be disproportionate or irrational. But then their reaction is weaponized against them, and they are blamed and shamed for exploding. They're blamed and shamed for being the aggressor. Now, I have made videos on reactive abuse previously and the long-term impact this can have on people if you want to watch those for more information. But in this video, I'm going to look at some ideas to help manage yourself and your boundaries against this kind of behaviour. And it is pretty much how you would handle any kind of manipulation. It's by staying in control of you. But just as a word of caution, whatever it is you do, you always make sure you're safe. You're not trying to provoke anyone and you're not trying to antagonize anyone. Because sometimes, well, you just might be dealing with someone who has a degree in muppetry. Other times, there is no telling how vindictive and spiteful someone might be. So you choose your battles and you choose them carefully. So the first thing to consider is responsibility. Remember that even if we are provoked, we are all responsible for our own behaviour. But you have to remember that that goes for them as well. So don't fall for things like, you make me like this, or you made me do it kind of stuff. Things like, I've got terrible anxiety, or terrible trauma, or some other nasty, awful thing that's going on. The things that they might say to excuse their behaviour. And then try to make you the villain for not being okay with it. Because narcissistic people will hold you to account for your behaviour and your actions. But if they can, they will also try to hold you to account for theirs. Now, this is the thing about being held responsible for other people's behaviour. It's like, you imagine they lift a frying pan and they just start beating themselves across the head with it. But they're telling you, look at what you're making me do. So see it as it is. Because even if they do genuinely have issues they have to deal with, it is up to them to deal with them. They have to learn to manage their own triggers. They have to learn to regulate their own behaviour. Because the most you, me, or anyone else can do is support them and encourage them. We can't change them and we can't fix them. Continually trying to change yourselves or to try to fix the world for them only really enables them. So you take responsibility for yourself and your own actions. You don't take responsibility for theirs. Next, if you are dealing with someone who's being very manipulative, if it's best to disengage with them, then just disengage. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean go no contact with them. It could mean use the grey rock method if you have to. So you don't confirm, deny, or commit to anything that you don't want to. You respond with neutral, one-word answers. You avoid giving them anything they could use as ammunition. Because chances are, if you're being provoked or maybe asked loaded questions, well, they're looking for an emotional reaction to feed off. So if you react, they have control. But if you respond, you have control. So they might be looking for something they can use against you, or looking for a reaction to weaponize, or they might be just trying to make it difficult for you to assert yourself. Whenever you respond calmly or assertively to their provocation, well, that's not what they expected. They might have been trying to embarrass you, shame you, or get you to back down by making you feel uncomfortable. So whenever you respond calmly, you've just become unpredictable, which means the power balance has shifted. They didn't get what they were hoping for. Now, as an example, if they were maybe doing or saying something which was aimed at embarrassing you, especially in front of others, well, you might respond with something like, I'm not sure I heard that correctly, but it did sound like you were trying to embarrass me. Could I ask you to say that again? What you've just done is you've just put the spotlight back on them, because their audience is now looking at them, not you. And even if they try to make some kind of stupid joke about your bad hearing or something, the focus is still on them. What they tried to do just missed and hit the wall. They didn't get the gratification of watching you squirm or react angrily. Next, if you do make them aware of there being consequences for the behaviour, you must follow them through, otherwise they will know you're not serious. Now, sometimes their behaviour might increase or might shift to try to test your boundaries. There might even be threats that they will tell others about things you have done or you have said to try to get you to back down. But if you have laid out a consequence, then you have to follow it through. For instance, if you were to tell them, continue doing what you're doing and there will be no more engagement until it stops. If they keep at it, then you disengage regardless of what their accusations are. And just to be aware, narcissistic people do tend to think very much in the here and now. So even if they do back down, well, they might think you've forgotten about it maybe an hour later, even a day later. So chances are they'll probably slip back into their bad behaviour. In which case you do still need to follow through with whatever that consequence was, no matter what they accuse you of. Because it's not like they weren't warned, so it's hardly a shock to them. Next, if they start twisting things, tell you you have no sense of humour, or maybe you're being too mean, you're too sensitive, or they're even exaggerating your reactions. Remember, the aim is to misdirect and to destabilise, to try to twist your perception. But try to stay grounded in reality, and remember, you don't need them to agree with you or to validate you. Stay focused on what is going on and stick to your point. And you don't necessarily have to say anything to them to defend your perspective, because remember, in some cases, it might even give them more fuel. But you keep reminding yourself, I am not too sensitive, I'm observant. No, I'm not being cruel. I just have self-respect. And if they accuse you of continually dragging up the past, you won't let things go, you won't move on. Again, remind yourself, I will move on whenever this behaviour stops. I will let it go whenever this is resolved. Another strategy could be, even whenever being attacked or accused of something, actually show them that you're listening. Repeat back to them what it is they've just said, but repeat it with a little inflection at the end. Try to make it sound like a question. For instance, you'll tell others what I'm like? Again, they are not getting the response they were hoping for. Instead, you've repeated their point, but you're showing that you want some kind of clarity. You've taken the spotlight off you, and you've turned it back onto them. So you're not apologising or explaining yourself, you're asking them to. Next, if you know what it is they're doing, and if you feel confident and safe enough, then just name it. If they keep poking, having digs, just tell them you know what they're doing. Again, you might be accused of being crazy or being unreasonable, but what you're really doing is holding a mirror up to them. Now, you might hear things like your therapist has turned you against them, or your friends are putting stupid ideas in your head. Because the thing is, to a narcissist, well, it's like everybody else is stupid. Because to them, there's no way you could have figured these things out by yourself. They might even do what they always do. They'll deny things. They'll use Darvo. They might even feign a heart attack in front of you. Anything at all to avoid having to take responsibility. Next, if they do accuse you of being the villain, being the bad guy, being horrible and being abusive for pointing out their behaviour, well, again, rather than you explain yourself, give them their own work to do. What you could do is you might ask them, well, how would you like me to communicate that I don't like being treated like that? Again, maybe not the answer they expected. That being said, don't expect a rational answer. Because when a narcissist has their behaviour pointed out to them, regardless of what they do or say, it can generally be summarised as, how dare you notice what I'm really doing? And lastly, your silence, your absence, can speak volumes. If you've pointed out their behaviour many times, if you've tried to reason with them, maybe even lost your temper with them and they still continue, well, this isn't always easy, and there can be many reasons why people find it difficult to break free from abusive relationships. But, if possible, and it's safe enough to do so, maybe it's time to just leave. Either that, or work towards leaving them. Maybe you don't owe them any more explanations other than you've already given. You don't need their validation or their approval. Just go live your best life, and let them sit in their own misery. Now, I know these things are not always easy, but what you might find helpful are things like journaling. Writing down what has actually happened can help keep you sane. Also, Educating yourself on narcissism and the motivations behind their behaviours can also help. But also get to know yourself and do some work on yourself. What is it in you that they keep triggering in order to control you? You could maybe learn about and practice emotional regulation exercises. Learn and practice assertive communication skills. Connect with people you trust, friends, therapists, even support groups, people who understand you and understand abusive dynamics. People who can validate your experiences and help you process emotions, even offer perspectives to counteract things like self-blame or the narcissist's narrative. And if you have to, plan for safety and a long-term exit. Utilize every resource and every bit of support you can get. So there are just a few ways of managing reactive abuse. Now, if there's anything you would like to add, please use the comment section because someone reading it might find it helpful. But I do hope you found something useful in this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing, and until next time, thanks for watching.